Hello.
Hello.
Welcome, Ray. Thank you for being here.
It's always fun to get to do this with you.
And I have no idea if we're actually streaming, so let me double check if we're on YouTube here. Let's see.
It
Oh,
says that we're live, and we should be live on State Change YouTube as well
I'm
as
not seeing
my link.
people on Restream. Normally, I can see people watching. It could also be that nobody's interested in our live streams. Let's see. Oh yeah, I think we're live. We should be. I just got an email from a client saying their app I built in Toddle doesn't work anymore. But that's a different thing. Always shooting a little bit at them.
Toddle anymore is what he's trying to
No,
say.
not,
Title no longer Toddle.
maybe that's why. There you go. But speaking of clients, considering what you built in Toddle actually works, you should charge more. And this is why we have Ray today inside of here, who's the expert at charging money. Every time I look at your pricing, it just always increases. So I was like, you got some self-confidence, and I would love to learn from you. So every time people look at my pricing, they're like, ooh, right? And for our audience as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, you went on a bit of a journey with your own professional services over the course of early 24 through late 24 and going from what you were building to some of the higher level stuff. And I think a lot of people would like to hear more about your story and your journey with that, and then we can sort of mix that into sort of some of the lessons along the way and how it's case study.
I started building applications for people, right? And that's kind of like how I pitched my services through that YouTube channel when I did it with Wiz back then, right? And I think I was one of the fewer people out there who kind of like figured out how to hack stuff into Wiz to make it things that it's not really supposed to do. So, there was a market for that. And it was a niche market. And then the more, you kind of like hack into there, the more unstable everything gets. And, taking a look at that stain change and all of that. But what I learned from that was actually people don't know how to get those things into their project, to just get that feature, get that SDK in there. So then I started doing consultation, and that was like, I was like, Ray charges, what was it back then? It was 700 or so. I was like, Ray charges 700. I'm not as good as Ray, but also people don't know how to do stuff in Wiz. So I think I can do 500. So I started actually with 250. I went up to 500 because there was lots of demand. So you told me the more demand there is, the higher your price is got to go. Yeah. So I was doing $500 an hour. People joined on a Zoom meeting, and then I helped them fix their issue in Wisp.
Yes.
And there was quite some demand for that because, there are lots of issues in Wisp. Like, how do I get this JavaScript library in here? Or how do I do this custom code? You have lots of Webflow people, and they have no idea about code, and they need some help with that. And then I was like, but, people always join, and they always ask the same question. I kind of like feel bad always charging $500 and knowing, kind of like how to solve that. It's always the same. So I was like, Ray is doing the office hours. So he has his low ticket offer and his highest ticket offer. How about I copy that? And then I sent you a message on stage, and I was like, Ray, I want to do what you're doing, but I need your blessing. I don't want to compete against you. So I sent you a message. I was like, Ray, I need your blessing on this. And I got his blessing. Look at that.
Yeah.
Now we're here.
I think it's a great model. Like I think that people can get really trapped when they are doing this kind of work because they are, I call it becoming a lackey, right? Where like, hey, you're the person, you're my tech person, and you're going to do more tech stuff for me. And what the user had this initially high amount of value, and then it starts to fall, right? As you sort of hit more lackey land, you're acting more like a like an employee. Right. And that is something that might still be adding a lot of value, but the employer sort of starts to take you for granted, I think. And
Yeah.
it's become much harder for you to change your rate, much like when you have a job, it's very hard to be rapidly changing your income. So
Yeah.
what I have found to be able to keep on creating more value and be able to keep on increasing your rate is you need to have shorter engagements, right? Because basically your previous engagements become the basis for proving out your value that justifies your new rate for future engagements, right? That's how you create a supply demand imbalance. But in order to do that, you need to end the previous engagement, have the new one, have the higher price. And that's kind of like what I saw you do. Like when we first met, I think you were at like 250, and then you're going up, and you went up and up
Yeah.
and up. I think in fairly rapid succession because you were just doing these rapid fire projects,
Yeah.
a lot of which were going and being these rescue deals, right? And
It was
the
lots of with Wiz. Every project was a rescue deal.
and you were adding so much value. That becomes a really key thing. Like, how much value can you add to your customers? If you're doing just table stakes stuff, you're going to get table stakes rates. If you're doing high value stuff, either because you have an unfair understanding of their business, an unfair understanding of the technology, like you were doing with the SDKs, wherever you have that edge, if you can really focus on delivering and levering on that edge, well, then you can create a lot more value for the client.
But
They
also,
receive it, and that justifies the higher rate.
what I do like the ideas of the short engagements, because I was like, people went to me like they're like, our project in Wisp is done, it's working, but this is broken and it's the last thing and we can't get it sorted out.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, let me look at this, and then I was like, oh, it'll take me 3 hours to do, and I can, it'll be $5,000.
Yeah.
And it's like they already invested 50,000 in the project, and it's the last thing missing, and then you can make like 1,000 an hour. Sounds like, oh great, I can make 1,000 an hour. You get like one of those a month, but like there's not that, or two or something. But like there's not like you won't like continuously make 1,000 an hour or so. Those are like, there are only so and so many people that use this specific framework that have this specific issue that need you to rescue it. So like it's not like being employed and making 1,000 an hour constantly. It's like you make 1,000 an hour, and then there are a few hours where you don't make anything, right? When you have a problem come to you and you actually get stuck with it because it's not that simple of a thing to solve.
Yeah.
And I found out that I like your model because not everybody can afford that $5,000 or that 500 an hour. So that's when I kind of started Let's Get Office Hours, so people can pay monthly subscription. And it's kind of like their rescue insurance. Whenever something breaks, we can take a look at it, and they know if I'm paying $129 for this a month, whenever shit hits the fan, I can join Office Hours, I can DM him. We're going to get it solved. If there's something urgent, he may even go on a meeting with me, even though it's outside of Office Hours, right? And I did like that model. And I was like, nobody should be paying thousands of dollars to have a little thing fixed, because it's really a little thing for me. Because if you get skilled and you know how the product works, it's simple. And I was saying not everybody can afford that. And what's with all the people who maybe can afford $100 a month, but they can't afford 5,000 to get this across the finish line, right? And because they've already spent so much on their project, or they're not going to work to get that started out. So this is kind of like why I completely moved away from that consultancy model and only moved to the Office Hours model, because I think it provides way more value than just fixing this critical thing for a company for $5,000 and doing the work myself. It is way more fun teaching people how to do it themselves.
Yeah, I think a good consultancy also looks like teaching people to do it themselves. And certainly it's true right now that most of, not all, but most of the clients I have for my consulting are also members of, State Change. And like what happens is most of the time they just need a little bit. Great. They drop in State Change, they get there a little bit, because it's about, oh, I've got a problem. Instead of making it last for days, let's make it last for a short period of time. And then when something very big is going to come along, I actually find primarily the engagements that come my way are what I call the accelerator program, where like there's some big project they're trying to take on. It's usually some combination of scale and security that really matters, right? We can't do it out in the open Office Hours, and those two things combine to make more sense for let's do a consulting engagement. But when we're using these accelerated development tools, the AI, the low code, no code, whatever it is. A key principle is that the buyer, the client, should be able to run it themselves. And so I think it's really important that, a significant part of the job isn't just go fix it and make it work. It's make it so that I am able to own this thing afterwards. And when you can do the two of those things, with a great deal of speed, that's really fulfilling the promise. It's very high value. It's a small number of hours. And that's the reason why that high value justifies a higher rate. But so the size of the engagement, it's not like you're doing a $500 an hour engagement for 500 hours, right? The idea is to be a smaller engagement, just do those important parts. At State Change, talk about the
Maybe
parts.
it'll be even like 30 minutes, and then you charge by the minute, and it will be $250 actually.
One could do that as well. But also, if it's going to be that small, that's really good for office hours.
I tell them, join office. It will be way cheaper if you join office hours. I actually don't do direct consulting. What I did is I actually put a consulting subscription for office hours. So you can get 4 meetings a month, plus code reviews or no code reviews. I'll look into your project. You can on a private Slack with me.
Yeah.
I will be connected with your team. All your team members can join office hours. Right now it's limited to 5 in case you have like 100-person team. We need to improve rates a little bit for you to do a custom rate. So I got that, and I found that works actually well. It's $9.99 a month. Mm-hmm. And it helps people accelerate their development time rapidly. And they're, we had one, Tara and Jack from last time, they have been taking on that offer. They started using Nordcraft. They actually ended ditching Nordcraft because it wasn't reliable enough for them. And we found they learned it during it, but they also had a trusted partner who was able to look in their eyes and say, I don't think this is right for you. And I support your decision in using something else. And sometimes you need to fall to learn to find the right thing for you, because it had lots of issues where it wasn't reliable. They were updating things and it didn't work. Not saying that Nordcraft is bad. I'm saying there are people who can work with Nordcraft, and there are people who can work better with Flutterflow, and there are people who can work better with WeWeb. Those tools have different mental models, and everybody is different in what they're working with. And sometimes you got to spend 2 months to save yourself 2 years of time in Nordcraft without making great progress, right? I think people always say this is the best tool, and it can be the best tool in terms of specifications, but what actually matters is it the right tool for you, right? For some people, Wisp makes more sense than Nordcraft, and for others, Nordcraft makes more sense than Wisp, and for other people, they both don't make sense, and WeWeb is the way to go. And for others, it's React.
Yep.
Right? You can't say this is the one tool you should be using in 2025, because everybody has to answer that question themselves, because everybody's different. Everybody has a different understanding. Everybody has different expertise going into this. So just saying this is the best, this is what I would use in your position, without knowing that person, without knowing, kind of like how they work with it, I think, that's not the right way to do it.
In State Change, we talk repeatedly. We have a few different mental models in State Change, so we use repeatedly. One of them is called the shopper's mindset. And the idea behind the shopper's mindset is that you should think about 3 things. What's the state of the art of the tooling, right? So that's like, hey, what's currently going on with Nordcraft or WeWeb or like you say, or React or
right
AI.
Now a client app broke that I didn't touch, and my client is a little bit pissed.
So the second, though, and this is important, is this is your point. Where are you in your journey? Like, where are you in terms of technical skill? What do you find easy versus hard? Some people really know their way around design. Some people really know their way around code. Some people are more comfortable back end, front end, whatever. But self-understanding is really important. And the third, and this is I think something that's under indexed, is what's the job to be done? Because you might have a band of technologies that are appropriate to you based on where you are in your journey, but which one's going to be most appropriate for the thing you're looking to do? And what happens is, as you are building, this kind of gets to your story, as you are building, the job to be done and your understanding of that job changes, and then the tool that was appropriate based on your initial understanding becomes less appropriate based on your new understanding, and that leads to another one of our mental models: you will build this again.
Yes. Also, one thing is Tara and Jack, they're actually not using Nordcraft anymore for their application. They moved it to Flutterflow. And I told them you should join State Change with Ray, because he's an expert on everything. And also, if anybody's listening to this right now, join State Change. It will be the best investment you can ever make. If, let's say, I were to be in the in a building that's on fire, and I could take a state change subscription or a no code pro code subscription to save from that building, I would save that state change subscription over the no code pro code subscription, because without Ray there wouldn't be any no code pro code, because I wouldn't know nothing about what I'm talking about.
That's super sweet of you. Although I think there are a lot of people who should consider maybe doing both of those. I mean, this is kind of like when we started the conversation here. Is like, what is the right model for getting help?
Yes.
And the you and I both have significant experience as people who do software development on a consultative or on a contract basis, and then being a bit more advisory and sort of as we sort of try to get sharper about it. But particularly these tools that are in fact usable, and the people who are coming in who have more background working with technology. I know I'm going to sound like an old man for a second, but like when I was earlier in my career, the idea that someone who's just sort of coming in from the business side is going to be able to be as adept with technology as someone in 2025 just wasn't the case. And that's a real demographic shift. But that's true for a lot of people who are watching this, and a lot of people who come into state change, and I'm sure coming into no code pro code. And that's why this model of like an office hours type model can just help people so much. And so like I think is that's why I was so excited that you would start no code pro code. Let's put up the QR code for no code pro code. Okay. You would start no code pro code because you taking your expertise that previously you were charging whatever it was, like $500 an hour, right, for people to get access to. And now you have these office hours, you have these recordings, you have these tools, right, which allow people to get access to more of you, not just like at a lower price point, which I think is also great, but also far more accessible. So they can get like, hey, I've got a problem. Wait, I don't need to decide to do a big consulting engagement. I can just, go talk to Yassine about it at office hours tomorrow. Or I've got a question on, this backend stuff, this data structure stuff, this AI stuff, whatever. And I can be talking to Ray about it at his office hours. And then we can be doing it in a way that isn't like totally disruptive to us because we're not sort of filling up our day with tons and tons of meetings. We can have a nice focused office hours, help a bunch of people. And then at the end, I don't know exactly how it works over at NoCode ProCode, but like a state change, we record them. About an hour after the meeting ends is up on state change. About a day after the meeting ends, it's been sliced up and is available through our vault for like semantic searches, and later this month we're actually gonna have an MCP server for it, so that people will be able to pull up, be able to ask questions, like integrate into their development efforts, the knowledge from over 1,000 hours of state change office hours, that they can come back at like, what are the ideas? What would Ray say about this? What do the mental models say about this? That are combining the office hours, the content from the forums, the various essays and posts and whatever, so they can just sort of get the best in a concentrated fashion. And every time we do an office hours, that gets bigger.
Very nice. And with no code pro code, it can take up to a few days to have the recordings available. Though I'm not as fast as Ray. I'm doing too many things at the same time.
Yeah, fair enough. And video is challenging, to be sure.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, if you want fast office hour uploads, go with state change. But the only thing important is living in the moment. So I got a great excuse for being a little bit behind, because you can experience it live if you join today. But this brings me also to my community. I increased the pricing 3 times. It started at $79, and I found out that the people who joined for $79 were actually hard to deal with. There were lots of questions, lots of DMs, lots of work. When I increased it to $99, less work, less maintenance, better questions. When I increased it to $129, I was like, why didn't I start with $129? Not saying that the people who joined for $79 are not great people. 99% are always great. But you have the ones that are hard to deal with in the $79 bracket are different than the ones that are hard to deal with the $99 bracket, and are different than the ones that are hard to deal with the $129 bracket. If that makes sense.
Yeah. It does. One of the things we found at State Change is that people who join at one bracket versus the other tend to be looking more for content versus looking for, the direct office hours help. Like they want to benefit the office hours, but not necessarily going. And like that's just something we are learning. And what this again brings us to the question about pricing, right? It's not really about like keep on increasing your pricing, although that is, good and positive from an economic point of view. I think the big standard that we should be thinking about here, and that if the audience could take one thing away, that's the way, is keep on increasing your value.
Yeah.
I also run something called State Change Mastermind, which is which is an application only, a club for people who are running, professional service businesses, consultancies, and we are, they're also, increasing, their rates, as they go. But we have a framework that we use for our weekly check-ins, which is study, sell, and ship.
Wait a second,
And
how can I join that?
yeah,
I didn't know you had that.
yeah. Well, it's been kind of in beta for about 6 months now. Our first member has, like tripled his income in the course of that, which has been pretty exciting to see. It's like there's lots of opportunity, that's sitting in there.
Can we put a website or a QR code up for this?
No, we don't. If people want to know about it, they can reach out to me initially. But like the reason I was bringing it up was this idea of value, like how you increase value. So I'm going to give everyone like something for free that we do through State Change Mastermind, which is otherwise a not inexpensive system, but it's all gain sharing based. And the idea is that you spend about a third of your time studying, a third of your time selling, and about a third of your time shipping. We call shipping, that's delivery of professional services. So like you were talking about like, hey, how many hours do you spend doing professional services, and like does everything come along, and how much do you charge? Well, our standard is 20 hours a week as maximum for delivering professional services, with the expectation you're spending another 20 working on your own sales and another 20 working on studying, so that your June doesn't look like your May in terms of the value you deliver for your customers, because you just keep on climbing, both in terms of business knowledge and technical knowledge. That's how you're able to, increase and that's the secret to increasing your rates. So increasing your rates is downstream of increasing your value and increasing the demand for you, right? And your value comes from the studying, and the demand comes from the sales and sort of making sure the market knows and creating that supply demand imbalance. And then that flows into the ability to charge, good money, but you're charging good money because you're delivering such extraordinary value on a continuous basis.
I also think that the secret of charging more is actually having a service that nobody can offer. I think it would be hard for someone just to be the next Ray doing State Change, right? Even though that's kind of like what I'm doing, but it's different. it's a different thing. I think like it would be hard for someone to be the next No Code Pro Code, and I think it would be hard for someone to be the next State Change in terms of our unique way of teaching and our unique way of solving problems. I think if people were to look at that, someone comes in there and they would look at State Change and that thing, they were like, I'll trust Ray.
Well,
if that makes sense, because like there's also you making videos on YouTube, you're providing value on there. People see you in the Xano forum. First, I thought you were working for Xano because you were responding more to stuff than until you were trying to sell me your subscription after every post. Which that's how I joined. I was like, how do I do this? And you were like, this is how you do it. We do more of this at statechange.com.ai. I tried doing that in the Nordcraft channel, but I got some warnings.
Yeah, it's like you figure out a balance, but I do totally believe in content marketing and personal branding. And the way you do it is just by creating value for folks. If you tell them what you have, and Gary Vaynerchuk has I think a pretty good model for this. He calls it jab, 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 right hook, which is give, 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 and the fourth time you're giving, you also mention what you do. And that 1 in 4 rule sort of I think is a reasonable rule of thumb for getting going.
I was doing it all the time. I was a walking billboard. I took your advice too literally. So don't take it too literally. But otherwise you get some DMs from people that are administrators saying stop advertising here your stuff in there.
Yep.
But the advertisement is still up there and people still know about it. So I consider it a success. And then just stop when they, kind of like tell otherwise you're out. So, have some balance in that.
Don't get booted. I'm also a big fan of forums that are cacheable on the web, like the ones that are on Discord or on Discord.
Yeah.
But like one of the advantages, for example, of say the Xano forum or the WeWeb forum, right?
I
Also,
love the WeWeb forum. 99% of our traffic to Despia comes from there.
well, and I don't know if you've noticed, but like when people look up mobile and WeWeb, they're taken to the Despia posts that are on the WeWeb forum, right?
Yeah.
So like this is why when people are sort of trying to figure out like how to do content marketing, I really like content marketing that like links into either search engine marketing, search engine optimization, or social media marketing.
Yeah.
So this is where I will recommend to people that they post on, say, LinkedIn more than others, because it has such wide reach and reach outside of just the technical community. And then into these forums, particularly for these various products that are also cached on the web. The problem with the Discord ones is they are not cacheable outside of that, and people who are like, "Hey, can I do this with Nordcraft?"
Nordcraft is actually taking the Discord posts and putting them on the website so they're cacheable. So it didn't like that I put my advertisement in there. Otherwise, the Nordcraft website was a billboard for my stuff.
Right. Which I think if you are giving enough value.
And that's kind of like the whole idea of me posting and helping people. like you're doing. Like if I look up Xano Forum Ray, I think 80% of the density of your posts are advertisements for State Change. This is how you do it, and we do more of that at State Change.
And it just like if you keep on going out giving value, that creates an ad, but then they need to know how to buy from it, and that's why you do. That's why the jab right hook, I think, is a reasonable way of going about that.
I also think the WeWeb forum and the Xano forum are more open towards consultants than some of the other tools out there, if that makes sense, right? Because like Xano has their whole consultant program, and I was talking with Daniel from Xano about it, and they're very appreciative of people who are actually helping people get unstuck in Xano for a little rate, or for a monthly subscription, or for X amount of dollars an hour. They really like that because most of the engagements with Xano are middle class and enterprise engagements, and most of the people that pay for Xano are not actually using it. That's kind of like the way I look at that, or not fully using it. They have a team, they're leading it, they know enough what Xano is to be able to pay the monthly invoice, but they need people to kind of like get them onto the next level. So I think this is why Xano appreciates people like you saying, hey, I also do consultations, because you're going to get them on the next plan, because they're going to grow faster with you, and then they're going to grow faster on Xano, and they're going to spend more for Xano, right? I think there is with some communities, I found that in the Wisp community, because you're always competing with FinSuite whenever you advertise something. Also in the Nordcraft community, I found, generally speaking, in the Nordcraft community, it sounds odd, but the people who use Supabase do not buy stuff. That's like a little observation. So the Supabase users compared to the Xano users, Supabase users are not paying for services. They're more like open source. Is it free? Is it this? So this is why I have nothing against Supabase. I think it's a great tooling, great technology. I wouldn't use it because I prefer convenience over having a Swiss Army knife for databases. But I found that if I focus on Xano and Nordcraft, the people that join with Nordcraft are actually willing to pay for the subscription. Where the people that use Supabase, they're using Supabase for a reason. If they're using Supabase because of a technical reason, most of them will join, and most of them will move to Xano once they join. We had that actually a few times. But people that use Supabase because they have a very generous free tier are not going to pay for your stuff anyway.
I think that's right. I remember like 4 years ago, I got myself into a system called CodeMentor, which is actually a micro consulting service. So the idea is you can ask for questions.
I was on there. I was looking for CodeMagic experts on there.
Yeah. Okay. So I was doing experiments with it, and what I would do is I would go and help, and I would get some reviews, and then I would increase my rate. And what I found was, as initially I went in, and like the vast majority of stuff was asking for like help with web apps, because that's what most people do. So I was helping web apps, and then I increased my rate. And then what happened was I saw I had a greater density of doing mobile development help, helping people with like developing in Swift and that kind of thing, and because I priced myself out basically of doing the mobile app, the regular web app stuff, right? Because my sort of my pricing was going up. Okay, fine. Then I kept on increasing my pricing, saw that fall away, and started seeing more things like AI. Actually, at the time, machine learning work. This is like 2021, right? So before ChatGPT, before generative AI was as cool as it is now. I remember I got in that period, I got to help a data engineer at NASA, the U.S. space program.
You gotta put that a logo on your website. We've been helping NASA.
That was super cool. Like, he was taking a real course and everything, and I helped tutor him through it. That was a lot of fun. And then, but then I kept increasing my rates, and that fell away. And then there were only two things that remained at the end. So one was actually crypto, because a lot of finance people are looking for technical help on that front. And the other was low code, no code building, because in both those cases, it was people who were not themselves professional developers who were looking to help to put their products or their visions into the market, either on the money side or on the development side. So the reason I bring all this up is that when you go into these communities, you start talking to people who look like those OG developers who are working in open source or what have you. Those are people who see their jobs as being, I do tech. I'm not going to pay someone else to do tech. That's supposed to be my money that I'm bringing home.
Yes.
Whereas when you're working in like the low code, no code tech, or in AI system development, et cetera, you're talking to people who have other jobs, right? I am a finance expert. I am a lawyer. I am, a real estate person or what have you. And those people say, I'm willing to pay and I want help I'll pay for tools. I will pay for help to bring my vision to fruition because they don't have it tied up in their identity.
Yes.
And when you have that, there's a great opportunity to create value because they get value from having the app and the understandings. They become sort of a cyborg of technical and domain knowledge, and they're happy to pay for that help to be able to make that transformation happen.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I found. The people using Xano, entrepreneurs, they're building tremendous stuff. People using Supabase are developers, because in the Nordcraft community, there are two sides. There are the no-code people. Most of them are freelancers or people building their own product. And on the other side, there are developers who use this because they want to have a visual way and they kind of like an alternative to React. I found you can't make money on developers. You can make money on entrepreneurs and freelancers because the money they're going to invest in having this thing fixed and getting this help or using this tool that makes it faster for them is a paycheck increase.
Yeah.
So you help people make more money, by being more efficient, by getting these issues resolved. You're going to make more money on the other side because you make more money if you help people make more money because they see a value in your offering. Where the developers are like, why should I join his course? I can have the videos all for free on YouTube and I'm going to put it all together. And it was like, that makes sense for developers. And thank God I'm monetized, so I'm making a little bit of that as well. But the audience I like are the no-code people because they're way more fun to work with. And because they're not opinionated on what they want to do, right? If you have a developer join office hours, for example, and he's like, I need to build it on the stack Supabase, and it needs to have this in the middle. I need to use N8N for that, and I need to do, Nordcraft for my front end. And then I'm saying something like, if you were to cut out N8N and use Xano instead and structure that correctly, you would be cheaper than paying N8N at a certain level. And I think you're going to have, with that much users, it's going to be cheaper probably after 1 month using Xano and using N8N, kind of like with their unit costs. And then, they say something, but I can self-host it. I can spend a week figuring out how to self-host it, manage all the infrastructure myself. And I'm like, do you really want to spend a week managing all the infrastructure yourself, making sure updates and all that? So I found it's just way easier working with no-coders. They use Xano. It's always up to date. And there's just certain issues we don't have to talk about in office hours because our focus is on Xano. And our focus is on the front end, primarily on Nordcraft, but I can also talk about WeWeb because I think we actually have our first people asking me about WeWeb questions, which is, it's coming along a little bit. But no, what I found is no coders, they're unopinionated of the tooling and their concern is getting it out there. They're not following an ideology how someone like Theo said on YouTube how you should do that and why you should use React instead of this. Because I think if you get rid of the ideology, you're going to make more money and you're going to start producing more results way faster. Because the biggest asset that you have is your time. And if you're willing to change your time to save $19 a month, I think you're doing a wrong decision. Right? Because your time is way more valuable. Like 1 hour saved, you got that $90 out.
I think that's such a key idea. The people need to
Especially
use their
time to
time to
market.
do that.
Especially time to market.
Yeah.
Every tool out there is an AI. If you can be with this next AI API that's trending right now and no app is on the App Store yet, out there a week faster,
Mhm.
it's going to make how much money? 20,000 more? 50,000 more? Because everybody looking for it on the App Store is going to look at your app. Until in a week, all your competitors who are using Swift or React Native will be on there. Because you're using Despia and you can move fast with web app development, you're already on there. So I think this idea of using no-code tools like Nordcraft, WeWeb, Despia,
Mhm.
Capacitor, I would even call that a no-code tool. Those tooling, right, and those infrastructure attached to the tooling is helping you get things out there faster. And everything that helps you get things out there faster provides such a value. And if you can help people get their stuff out there faster, get more of the market, you can increase your rates because you're providing more value. And people will be willing to pay for it. That's the most important thing. And that's kind of like what I learned from you. So I'm just repeating what you've always been preaching.
Yep. People will, that's key. You want to create something that people are willing to pay for. And that just starts with value. But I think your point about elapsed time was really a key one, and that becomes the reason why one wants to use these tools. That's where they pay their money. And if using the tool doesn't make you go faster in that regard, it's often not worthwhile. I often talk about two concerns. One is speed, which you just talked about, and the second is ownability.
Yeah.
But ownability is increasingly, I mean, not universally, but increasingly table stakes. I think for a lot of these tools, and a lot of the ones that were sort of previously deemed as scary, right? Because that's code. I mean, AI generated code is really good, and even to the point where like I've got a fairly deep experience as a developer. But I gotta say, for almost all the UI stuff I'm doing, I'm doing it through the sidebar, right, where the chat is, right, in the code editor, not by creating the code itself. When I'm doing back-end work or more sophisticated data science work, more likely I'm going to be editing code because it's like the can't quite figure out what I'm doing. But particularly that front-end stuff, oh my goodness, you can go so much faster.
Yeah, definitely. I think this brings us to an interesting question. For people who are watching, they're like freelancers and they're working for clients or they're consultants. What would be your advice for them how they can start charging more and making more money at the end of the year or at the end of the month?
Yeah, I get fired. I think is you used a term that's a state change term a little while ago, and I say state change term just because I hadn't heard it before I said it, but like maybe it also comes from somewhere else. I talk about short and sharp engagements.
Yeah.
And the idea of being short,
video.
The idea behind being short and sharp is that you are trying to have a whole lot of impact in a short period of time, right? It is not a win for the engagement to go longer. If you are saying, hey, we're going to do this on a call together, and then they're like, okay, well, we're getting to the end of the hour. Can you finish this up after the call? That's not a win. That's a loss, right? Because even though they're going to pay you for that maybe additional hour, like the shorter you make it, the higher value it is. If you can get that done in an hour, oh my goodness, they'll pay more for the hour. They'll pay more than what the otherwise would have been for the 2 hours because you've delivered a high level of value and that it has a high trust quality to it. If you can get something done in a day versus a week, get something done in a week versus a month, that is worth a whole lot to the client. And that's even if you like just do concentrated work, right? More hours. But even better is like bring the right tools to the job so that you can do it in fewer hours with less time and higher degree of reliability. You put those together, it's really great. And that's what we call short and sharp.
And if you love short and sharp engagements, and you want to learn directly from Ray, scan the QR code that you see on the screen right now and join State Change. Office hours, mental models, and tools to solve the hardest 5% of building remarkable software. Lots of testimonials. Everybody loves it. It's beyond vibe coding and it's beyond no code. It's about making you a better developer and also from a business perspective, a better developer. And you can learn directly from the man himself, Ray Deck.
That's kind of you say. But this gets to your question, like what should freelancers be doing, right?
Yeah.
And if they can be doing more in a short period of time, then the thing that happens is like your career is the progress of your career is measured usually in the jobs you have, right? So someone who's got a bunch of jobs in their career and they're sort of each one sort of stepping up, that's a high flyer, right? Somebody who spends 20 years doing one job is, well, obviously not a high flyer because they're doing 20 years doing one job. So so what I look to do is get fired, right? Do the job. It's a win. They get to their next state, go move on to the next client. Oh, wait, you can charge more because you actually have the credibility of having helped the previous client who's so happy with you. They're providing some kind of testimonial. Now, not all clients provide testimonials. Not all clients are happy, but if you can get that wheel turning, right, then you keep on going to the next one. Now,
Yeah.
this is like you were talking about before. It's not a job, right? You can't be consulting 40 hours a week in that kind of model. That's why we talk about study, sell, and ship as a required framework. In fact, it makes for a 60-hour week, not a 40-hour week. But the idea is you keep on studying to increase your skills. You keep on marketing out so that you have that stream of new business coming in. It's not well, how can I like put up a post on LinkedIn that's going to get a whole bunch more leads? You're not gonna. But you do a bunch of posts on LinkedIn. You give a lot of value back into the market. That compounds over time if you keep it up. It actually can dry up pretty quickly if you don't keep it up.
Videos again, I've been too busy.
Making tutorial videos, making marketing videos, showing just that you're a human being can actually help quite a lot. And then doing things that focus on the business customer, not just your fellow. I talk about chickens and foxes, not just for the other foxes who are the other vendors, but for the customers, for the business people who you want to be working with. And then they see more of that. They're able to get that. They get value from it. Maybe they were able to solve a problem just by using your video. And then they get to the problem where they can't solve by using your video, and now they're coming back to you because you are the person.
Always gotta leave out some things in your videos so people join your membership.
Fair enough. I will tell everyone here, don't leave anything out. Share all of your best ideas, because you're not just your ideas, you're also your execution, right?
Yes.
So people if you put out your best ideas, people will then try to put them to work. They'll get some value from them. And then they'll say, well, for the rest of this, right, I know I can see that's a good idea. I appreciate that's a good idea, but I'm not as good as executing. I need somebody who can help me execute. And who do I trust to execute? The people who had the idea. And that's
what I'm doing with the videos, for example, when I'm making a video how to integrate Stripe, I'm like, this is how I do it. I go through all the steps, but then at the end of the video, I say like, now, canceling your subscription, working with webhooks, securing those webhooks. Those are things that really depend on how your project structure is. I can't just provide a boilerplate in this video and you can't just fly with that, because that wouldn't be, that would be a little unreliable, because it may not work for your structure. This depends on how your backend is structured. So we gave an example in this video, but if you want more something that's tailored to your solution, and that's the leaving out I meant, you can join my community. We can take a look at your project together and we can implement it in Office Hours the way it works securely for your project. Works wonders.
Yeah, it does. But your question, like how do they get started? They should be spending more. They should be saying they don't need to be spending all their time building. They should be allocating similar amounts of time. I find like you can start small, but like get big, of both selling and of studying. Take your engagements, try to get fired from them. That doesn't mean you can't have rollover. You can't have like a next engagement with the same client, but you want to have one door closed so the other can open, so that you can be doing it from where you are today, as opposed to being a mere extension of where you were previously. Because if you start with where you were previously, then it's based on what that rate was. I can't tell you how many clients I have, I talk with these consultants who say, well, I can't afford to, go do more sales to increase my rates because I need to do this work because I have clients who really want me to do work. Well, what are you charging? I'm charging $50 an hour.
Anymore.
And there's nothing wrong, by the way, with charging $50 an hour or whatever rate you think is appropriate to you. But I do think that as technical professionals, we are only as good as our connection to technology, and technology keeps on changing. So we need to keep on changing too if we're going to keep on being relevant and be able to command a premium in the marketplace.
I think that's very good. I also think that most of the times whenever you are doing videos out there and you're creating content, you also want to have ways for people to kind of like get involved in your offering. I think lots of people, they're doing stuff for free for the sake of doing it for free, but there are no clear ways how people can reach out to them. And then they kind of believe maybe someone is doing a tip on my buy me a coffee or something. They won't. You want to have clear call to actions for people that actually get value on the stuff that you're providing for free to the community, be it a package, be it a template, be it a video.
Very cool.
Like, great. Like, this is how you do it, and we do more of this, and we solve the hardest 5% at statechange.ai. That's how it got me in. I was trying to get 11 Labs working, and that was 2 years ago or so. I was trying to get 11 Labs working, and then Ray said, "This is how you do it, and if you need more help, you can join my community here for money." And he said it nicer. And then there was the link. I looked at the page. I was like, "Oh, that guy's trying to sell me his course." And then when I got stuck the next time he planted that, I was like, wait a sec. What was his name again?
Yeah.
And then I joined. And since then I'm paying $150 a month. I think for the past 1 or 2 years, it's been the best investment of my life. I can tell you, I've never made a best investment in my life than State Change. And I'm not running the office hours mostly, but I'm still paying for it because it's such a great investment. Just looking at the community, taking a look what's going on there, being able to read what other people are sharing, being able to look at the vault, the script tag alone is worth the money, right? Just great tools, great educational material in there. If you are serious about what you're doing, you gotta join this. And it starts actually as low as $39 a month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm really selling your stuff hard today, but you're providing so much value, and I want people to benefit from this because I completely believe that what you're doing is the right way to do it, and you're doing it professionally, and you're really helping people in their position get better software out there, get it faster, and leverage that on the market towards their advantage.
Yeah, I well said, man, and I appreciate the kind words.
And we also got good news because we're going to the end of the hour. We got some good news. V3 of Despia is ready. It wouldn't be right. I wouldn't even got V3 out there without Ray, but so that's the new landing page. It's the native runtime to compile web to native, no coding needed. We also now have widget support coming in a few days. And we got new documentation. And I want to thank Zachary from the WeWeb community so much for providing his insights on our old documentation, which sucked. And thanks to him, we were able to take that feedback, improve it, make it better for you, make it way clearer, outline every specific step, document every SDK. It's publicly available on docs.despia.com. I think also when you want to start charging more, you got to listen to people who you don't agree with, because they're right and you're wrong. That's why I don't agree with them.
Yeah, that was I remember you talking to me about that conversation, and that was a super useful, moment. Like, listen, that not say that people who have that kind of feedback are always right, but they often
there's always some truth to it. I think with him it was completely right, but
yeah, absolutely.
And this is how Despia works for the people wondering. If you have your web app, you put the Despia JavaScript library inside of there. You got the runtime, that is JavaScript to Swift Kotlin, and then you got the native core that runs your application. And that's how it nicely connects. That's how you can build your mobile application in WeWeb, Nordcraft, Wiz, whatever you want to do. And then now we have one-click publishing for iOS and Android. So one click, you run that build tool for you. You don't have to deal with it. And it's building the application as an IPA or AAB or APK and sending it one click to the Google Play Store and Apple App Store, so you don't have to deal with any of the submission, all that stuff. We do it all for you, and if you set it up correctly, we have 100% success delivery rate of getting that to the App Store.
Super cool, man.
And then let me bring that back to Ray's beautiful advertisement again for State Change. You want to say anything to us?
I was about to ask you, how many apps have been shipped to the App Store through Despia today?
So I think it's about 10, which sounds bad, but most of those tools they can only count that you can count less on two hands how many how many apps have been actually shipped. But if I take a look at how many have been sent to, test flight and have been approved for beta testing, that's been around 60.
Mm-hmm.
So, and nobody has gotten a rejection, which is pretty nice.
Right, and we should expect at some point there's going to be some rejections, and like it'll come around. But those are.
Johnny had one rejection that said you got to charge inside of the app. I mean, there's no hard rejection saying no, not with Despia. Like people always think, can I use Despia and will I be approved by the App Store? If you're building a good application, you'll be approved by the App Store. Apple doesn't care what technology you're using.
That's true. In general, that's true. That's truer now than it used to be. And that's another good example of the whole shopper's mindset thing. Like what is true today that might not have been true before. And that's super cool, man. Congratulations. And you're absolutely right that if you go look under the covers at Flutterflow in 2023 or DraftBit even very recently, the number of apps they've actually shipped. I usually ask these questions, like how many apps have been shipped to production? I understand that question. They don't know the answer. But it should be much easier for the mobile apps to answer, because it's a question of how many have gotten shipped to the App Store, and the answer is shockingly small. So that for you, from such a small base to have that much that is actually committed up is it's a remarkable sign and a real achievement. Congratulations.
I appreciate it. Again, I couldn't have done it without you. You've been helping us so much across all the steps of the way, and I mean it's great technology. It compiles down to over 2,000 native files for iOS and more with Android. So it's kind of like the whole engine that builds it together. And I mean, I remember in office hours, you actually kind of like gave me half of the idea. I said, I want to make a mobile application. Can I do this in Wiz? And you said, yeah, you could use something like Capacitor. And I was like, what's Capacitor? You essentially gave me the idea for Despia. And then I tried Capacitor and was like, oh, I don't like that thing.
Yeah. Just recently, our friends at Xano hired the former heads of marketing.
Yeah, from OutSystems.
Actually from Out, but do you know where they came from before OutSystems was Ionic.
Yeah, because OutSystems buy Ionic.
Right. So they are mobile people, so they've got some mobile DNA in the company now.
Ooh, I think Xano should go into the front end market and take over the market from Nordcraft and WeWeb. But that's probably a hot take, though.
I think there are questions about that. I also remember that Backendless did this a couple years ago. They introduced Frontendless, I think it's literally called, and I don't think it worked out really well for them. Because the question, like, what are you totally world class at? What I think is more interesting, this actually might be a good topic for us for the next office hour session too, is like, what's the future of apps? Because what I think is really interesting is this, there are people fighting over what's a better way to build an app. And I ask, given the context that we're in, what's an app that's worth building? What does it look like? Where's the technology for it? And does it use the same things as before? Rachel Neighbors gave a great talk at All Things Open about, called it Death of the Browser. And the idea of...
You just mentioned Death of the Browser. I'm just going to put up the Despia QR code because it's like a nice way to place this now.
Oh yeah, the mobile apps become really interesting, but also apps that are, have a very different kind of use case. Like we've talked about MCP before, the idea of being able to deliver apps through, through the AI interface, or let's go up another level. How about being able to have apps that are completely dynamically generated based on who you are?
I mean, I actually built that in Despia. I'm using the Despia runtime to have an interface to build React code that will then, because Despia can render React, it's very similar in how it works to React. If you actually export the code, you'll see we have lots of React Native dependencies in there. It doesn't use React Native, but like the packages, the SDKs we use, most of them are designed for React. So like Screen Shield and all that. So you can run React in Despia, and it works great. So I built an app that, because I had this issue, I want to have little tools on my phone that I just generate. So I built a little chat interface where I can, like the Vibe Code app, but I didn't want to pay for it. And I wanted to make it myself to see if I can do it. So I built this app where I just type in, and it builds actually a full application for MCP clients. So I have my tools in the application set up to do image, to do this, and it then generates React code that puts all of those things together, runs it client side. So so I'm actually sending this generated code to Xano, and then it adds the API key securely to it, and then serves me this back as an HTML document with my React application, and then renders that in Despia, because Despia has a remote rendering. So that's how I'm going to set that up. The files are being served from Xano, dynamically generated. API keys are not in local storage, so that's secure as well. And then kind of like that's how I set it up. And I can now go into that application, type in, I need a SEO analyzer for websites, and then I can get the interface, put in a URL, and it analyzes its SEO with AI. And I built like an app that can generate apps, and then it's almost like TestFlight a little bit.
Well, yeah, the app that generates apps that are going to be relevant for you is, I think, where all this is going. It's a complicated idea, and I think we've seen it
in Despia. The question is if Apple will approve it.
Yeah, because Apple does not like mutable apps. That's definitely true. That's going to be an interesting challenge. But the fact that the app is being presented as an artifact, right, which is, say, like as a text file, right, as opposed to being a change to the binary code, is where things get kind of interesting. And there are complete programming systems that are deployed, like like particularly educational ones, like Hopscotch comes to mind, that are that are available for the iPhone as well. And and the more recent, Apple versus Epic stuff has potential to, open up that issue of mutability even further.
Yeah, I was shocked that I saw some Vibe Code mobile apps on the App Store. I think that having those links will give you a good argument if Apple reject yours. Because with App Store, it's almost like court. You got to come up with an argument, you got to present your evidence, and you got to sound sleek. Like, you got to be very well spoken. You got to be, I've been looking at that situation. There's some evidence is attached of competitors. Like, I wanted to get an application to the App Store where people can test their Despia mobile application and Despia mobile application. And Apple told me we can't do that. And I told them, but Bravo Studio is doing that. And personally said, yeah, but we stopped approving that. Never again. So it can also go in two directions.
Yep.
So sometimes Apple, I don't want to sue them. So I just gave up on that fight, and they told us to use TestFlight.
Oakley.
That was so that would be the one Despia app that didn't make it to the App Store, because I was rendering apps in one app, and they said, but what prevents users from put malicious stuff in that application? And people, and I was like, yeah, but you can do that with React Native too. And look at Expo, and they were like, yeah, but it's different. I was like, how?
It's a bit different. Yeah, I hear you. Okay, man. This has been awesome.
It's been wonderful. I think it's been a very interesting conversation. Definitely check out what do we have? StateChange.ai.
Yep, and also check out No Code Pro Code. Let's put that up there too. There we go.
There you go.
And be able to see what the coaching model that we open the conversation with can be all about, and people will be able to see more of what we're all about when we meet up next week.
Yeah, and I also think if you have any questions, let us know in the comments so we can answer some question next time. I think Ray will and me, we will probably like to answer some question and get some questions. They kind of like create new conversations and new topics that we can build our office hours around.
Super.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time, Ray. And thank you so much, everybody watching, for your time as well. We really appreciate that. And we can't wait to see you next time.
See you all.
Take care. Bye.